Oh, Krystal and Saagar have a heated debate on Disney DeSantis. 7 minutes. So it's clipped from an episode. It's not a full episode itself. Oh, hold on.
All right, guys, so at the request of our premium subscribers, we're trying something a little bit new. So as you know, typically we do our monologues and then we engage in a back and forth. And that back and forth is actually the only part of our content that we paywall and is exclusively for our premium subscribers. Sometimes those exchanges and those debates are particularly noteworthy or heated or interesting or whatever.
This is an intro.
And so what we're going to start doing is every week picking one of those and posting them a couple days later. So still premium subscribers get the jump on it, get to see it first, but then the whole wide world gets access to it a couple days later.
That's right. So this is what this week's discussion looks like. And going forward, you guys can enjoy it. Let's take a listen.
That seems like a sensible business plan. Okay, so it's actually just 7 minutes because we've seeded the intro here. What do we got?
Everything about this drove me a little bit nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it should. On the Disney part, I think it's so funny that they own themselves by having to now raise property taxes to hundreds of millions of dollars by taxing those populations.
I mean, I guess the only thing you could say is that those counties where Disney's located are mostly blue.
Yes.
So, like, maybe they don't care.
It's kind of like the SALT repeal. It's
maybe they don't care that it's down. But it's still, like, definitely not the way that it's being portrayed. And ultimately, also, I read it's not even going to go into effect for, like, a year. So you could also very easily see them like working out some deal down the road where none of this even actually happens.
I think they'll figure it out. I do got to say, and I'll stick up for the right-wing listener base of this, I don't think this is an attack on gay people. And I just think that framing it that way is just not the right way.
Don't say gay, Bill. All right. All right. Here we go. I think what they're talking about right now is DeSantis's threats to like change the tax status of Disney. I haven't followed it that much. There's some,
Of course it is.
It's really
You think that there's going to be lawsuits over if some straight teacher talks about their like heterosexual marriage? Of course not.
I think the impetus of the bill is about teachers. In terms of the extent of this, Libs of TikTok possibly made it larger than it is, but like there are teachers and nurses which are, pushing trans ideology with young kids.
Why? It's always pushing trans ideology. They never just say what it is. Like, because overwhelmingly it's like, sometimes a person who's a boy and say they're a girl, and that's like nothing. It's this incredibly innocuous. It's a nothing burger, But it's much more sinister. Trans ideology. You could do this with anything. The idea that racial equality is valid. Well, that's racial ideology. You could say like, sometimes boys like girls, but sometimes they boy like boys. That's the homosexual ideology. It's fear mongering. It's scaremongering. Okay.
It's which parents don't necessarily want their kids to be taught about.
Don't care. Why? By the way, when did this idea that parents disagreeing with okay, listen. Here's something conservatives don't get. Education is for the kid, not the parent. The right to an education is something the state gives to children for the children. You don't get to, like, as a parent, you don't get to decide, like, well, I don't think my child is entitled to this element of their rights. That's not, I don't care. People, like, the idea that parental rights, the idea here, the argument, the way they frame it, is that parental rights supersede the school's rights. But that's not actually what they're saying. They're saying parental rights supersede the child's right. It is the child's right to an education. And if that education is completely determined by the parent, then it's not really meaningful. Obviously, the curriculum has to be held to certain standards. If the parent is yoinking kids out of school because they disagree with some elements of the education, that element of the child's right is conditional, in which case it's not really a guaranteed right at all. So, like this, like I don't care. I don't care if the parents disagree. If there's an issue with the curriculum in terms of its accuracy, then you can take that up in educational spaces. But they don't. They go straight to the political system. You notice that? There are challenges to educational curriculum all the time in educational spaces. But they never go through those because there's nothing. Well, there are plenty of things wrong with the curriculum in American education systems. Don't get me wrong. But their issues don't actually stem from the quality of the curriculum. It's a political thing. They politically disagree with the contents of the curriculum, so they go through political channels. If you want to take issue with the American school curriculums, by the way, there are a ton of students who are taught like the lost cause myth. The idea that the Civil War was started over states' rights, and the North started it, and blah, blah, blah. Like, there are actual massive ethical and technical issues with the curriculum everywhere. And so many of our textbooks are made by like this one company in Texas, and they like are super political in how they control what gets taught. And like, there's a ton to get into there. The issues, however, have nothing to do with like some teacher saying that they're gay to their 5th grade class or whatever. It's completely irrelevant.
Now, look, should I think the nation's attention should be focused on that? No. Is it largely a limited instance with these teachers? Yes.
But I don't
Well, that's nice.
think it's about
the thing.
It's not about a burger.
I mean, so many times though we've talked about how dishonest it is to find one example of saying something cringy,
Totally.
and then make it like, oh, this is a whole thing, and this is
Krystal holding the water. Krystal shining. I see it.
they're creating a moral panic, and it is specifically, as you said,
Krystal.
about gay people and about trans people.
Well, I don't
And
think it's
so
about gay people. I think it's about trans ideology amongst young kids.
No, but there's also
that's the key.
And also, here's the other issue: is like, sex ed is already illegal
Well,
in
then why
Florida.
are these parents teaching? This is the problem. Why are
K
these
to 5?
Why are
So
these
like,
kindergarten
what is this
teachers talking
ultimately
this
about?
anyway?
It's about culture war.
I don't disagree, but I mean, there are instances of kindergarten teachers like pushing trans ideology among.
Notice how Saagar has to keep running back to the bumper sticker talking point, to the like highly euphemized propaganda talking point. Like, Krystal just said multiple sentences, but he keeps going back to that, you know? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? Dude, if you want to, like, listen, okay? I remember, even when I was in kindergarten, okay? They're fear-mongering over students all the way up to high school and beyond. But, you know, even in kindergarten, my teacher said lots of stuff. My kindergarten teacher got married during my time in her class, and she went from Miss to Mrs., and when talking about that change in title, she talked about her marriage and said, like, oh yeah, my husband is so-and-so, you know. It wasn't grooming. It was just a kindergarten classroom where 7-year-olds with snotty noses are like, what's his name? And the teacher was like, oh, well, his name is that. Like, it's just, it's nothing. It's nothing weird. You know, yeah, groomed into the heterosexual ideology. It's completely asinine. Doesn't mean anything. Don't kids still refer to her as Miss? I never refer to my teachers as Misses. Well, of course, we were kindergartners, so a bunch of them still called her Miss. But like, she didn't like get angry for using the wrong title. She just like said it. She just brought it up, you know. It's very, yeah.
What do you mean by pushing trans ideology?
So
Krystal ball. Shining.
Because
like,
that's the other thing that's really disgusting and pernicious about this, is being like, if you're trans, ergo, or you're talking about this at all, ergo, you're grooming kids.
100%.
Which is disgusting, and that's part of what this is all about.
Krystal.
I mean, his own communications director tweeted out something to that effect. Chris Rufo was in the page of the New York Times basically making that case right now.
So when I say pushing trans ideology, I'm not talking about making, you know, you're a teacher and you're like, hey, my pronouns are they, them. I believe in a free country. You do whatever you want. I'm talking about, and again, I don't even like delving into this stuff, but like the transition closets, you have nurses which are pushing hormones on the young.
Well, hold on. First of all, I have no idea what a transition closet is. I've never heard that term before. Nurses pushing hormones. I am going to need... Okay, I'm going to need like 7 citations on that. My school nurse, her job was to chill in the nurse's room, and if a kid got a headache, she'd be like, go lay down. Like, that was it. Like, the most she could do is give a Band-Aid. Like, pushing hormones? Like HRT, like she has like a needle in the back? Oh yeah, here's your testosterone. I would need to see something. I'm pretty sure, I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure that if you're a nurse in school and you're pushing hormone injections onto preteen students, you will get fired for that. I'm just guessing here. there might not be a law against it. I still think it would happen. You know, I still feel like you would get in trouble for that. But maybe there's like some story somewhere of this happening, but I have a feeling that it was done like illicitly, right? Like, here's a transition closet. This is all Florida transition closets afterwards. Like, there might be some story somewhere of like a crazy trans supportive nurse who was like telling fifth graders who the nurse thought was trans, like, hey kid, yeah, I can get you HRT. But I guarantee you, as soon as that was found out, that nurse got fired. Right? Like, if that's the case, then that's just an example of unacceptable behavior getting you fired. Like, you don't need a law against that. That'd be like saying, like, well, there was a nurse who got fired after it was found out that they were stealing, so we need to pass a law against nurses in schools stealing. It's like, no, we have this covered. Thank you. Yeah, you have to, your kids' parents have to sign a fucking permission slip for you to get Tylenol. Let me see. Oakland school launches transition closet to help students hide gender dysphoria from parents. What is this? Concept, which began in an Arkansas church, first launched at the Good Shepherd Lutheran School in Fayetteville? Fayetteville? Really? That's where we're getting the trans support from Fayetteville? All right. That's some nominative prescriptivism right there. Designed to let trans identify youth circumvent their parents socially transition their knowledge. Fremont High School. So what is it? The goal of the transition closet for students to wear the clothes that their parents approve of, come to school, then swap out into the clothes that fit who they truly are. Wait, that's it? It's just clothes for them to swap into if they want? I thought it was like they shove a kid in a closet and beat them to death or something. This is it? And this is in a high school as well? It's literally just a clothes change for high schoolers. Nothing here leads to grooming or like brainwashing for kids. Like, what cisgender 14-year-old is going to hear about the closet full of women's clothes and go, oh, that sounds good, and that makes them trans? Like, there's no, this is nothing, you know? Also, the idea of the school having like reserve clothing in case students need to change is already a thing if people's outfits are inappropriate sometimes. This is just one that's geared towards like gender dysphoria or whatever. Like, this is just not harmful, you know? It's nothing. I don't care. Now I know.
Young kids and telling them not to mention it to their parents. You have like
Hold on.
You have nurses which are pushing hormones on the young kids and telling them not to mention it to their parents.
Again, pretty sure that whatever news story this person is referring to here, whatever news story Saagar is referring to, that person probably got fired when it was made public. Can anyone find a citation on that?
You have like GSA clubs popping in with like young children, and they're saying like, we're going to protect this from the parents and not tell them about what's happening. I think.
Okay. GSA is Gay Straight Alliance. And yeah? Well, listen, if a teacher's like, hey, it's cool if you're gay, we're not going to disclose it to your parents, why would you expect teachers to disclose info about that to the parents? Why would that? Why is there an obligation for that? Like, this is a very effective way of preventing abuse. The mandated reporting shit, like, lets abusers get away with it. Like, if the kid doesn't feel comfortable saying they're gay to their parents, then their parents are abusive. Like, there's no getting around that, you know? This has nothing to do with the health of the children. It has to do with parents controlling and limiting their children, which is a form of abuse. And it makes it easier to groom children when children don't have any other people they can talk to without threat of disclosure.
The policy should be, if as a child, if you want to explore whatever you want, you should talk to your parents about it. We can come to sex ed and we can talk about ideology all we want. K through 3, yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why it should.
Wait, what?
Sex ed. If as a child, if you want to explore whatever you want, you should talk to your parents about it. We can come to sex.
So what? If there's a gay straight, what do you mean talk to your parents? They can talk to their parents.
Ed and we can talk about ideology all we want.
What ideology are we? See, he keeps having to defer to these euphemisms here. Like Krystal Ball has been pretty clear with her language, but he keeps deferring to these like, professional buzzwords.
K through 3, yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why it should be pushed. Now that being said,
Pushed, like the term pushed here. The law, the Don't Say Gay bill, it's not about pushing it. It's about no discussion or curriculum or anything of it discussed, and it allows parents to more easily sue school department or school districts for this stuff. Like it's not, listen, as a general rule, if you want to find out if a person's full of shit, find out whether they can talk about an issue they care about, a heated issue, without deferring to loaded language. If they have to keep referring to loaded language, if they need it, if it's a crutch for them, that probably means their actual underlying point ain't that good, Now, everyone's going to use loaded language if they're, say, a public figure who talks about a given political issue they care about. But there's nothing wrong with using it sometimes, especially if you're trying to like really deliver on a point. But you need to be able to talk about these issues without that loaded language. And I think it's very easy to do that here. I think Krystal has done that here, but he keeps using it.
is this the main thing that I would want to focus on? No. And like you said, Disney is rolling to the bank in terms of their support for this stuff. I see, it also talks to you about what their executive classes focus on. They're like, oh, my child is a pansexual, whatever. Your kid, you do whatever you want. But whenever they do that type of stuff, they're ignoring the fact that you have homeless Disney workers and others.
That is such a perfect indication of how disingenuous hacks like Saagar try to use class issues as a way of distracting from their reactionary politics. These have nothing to do with each other. And by the way, Disney has been generally considered to be a socially conservative company up until like a month ago. The understanding that Disney was generally socially conservative has been ubiquitous for decades of like modern discourse concerning the politics of the media that they produce and of their internal corporate culture. The only reason now that they look to be progressive is because the Republicans in Florida are psychotic. Anybody would look progressive next to Saagar. I don't know about that. No, that's true. Yeah. No, it doesn't even have to do with Disney being a literal Nazi or whatever. It's that Disney has always supported fairly conservative politicians, and generally Disney has always been pretty like milquetoast and like at the most like neutral when it comes to a lot of progressive issues. Their woke stuff and their products are usually very thin veneers, and there are plenty of artists that have worked with Disney that have talked about the corporate culture there, which prevents the application of stuff that goes too far beyond the status quo. They're a very safe company. Now, Disney has had a Game Arch for a long time. If you guys want to look into this, you're totally free to, okay? There are plenty of woke people who work at Disney. The corporate culture of Disney, the executives, have spoken out against this stuff in the past. At the very least, if you guys think that Disney is considered like an icon of progressive rights a year ago, like they would laugh at you for this, But now, because DeSantis is a lunatic, I mean, it's really like a framing thing. Isn't that every corporation, though? Yes, that is a lot of corporations, generally speaking. And Disney is a massive corporation. Anyway, that's not even the point, okay? The point here is that notice how Saagar just was like, it's so disingenuous because, like, Disney not being super homophobic and Disney being a fucked up company don't have to be related issues. Like, Saagar is the one promoting the homophobia through the legal system here. And he's like, well, you know what's really fucked up? The fact that Disney isn't homophobic with us, but also they don't treat their employees right. Totally separate issues. Much in the same way that a lot of the Nazbol Vortex types will use a phony invocation of economic principles in order to distract from other political positions. And mind you, of course, that Saagar like votes red, like from the bottom to the top. So in spite of the fact that Republicans are far more like anti-worker than Democrats are, clearly that's not actually his motivator either. It's very obvious he's just a Republican who like pays lip service to economic issues, a la Tucker Carlson.
Yes,
I think on the bill itself, framing it as attacks on gays is not right.
It's true. They want to re-stigmatize anything that is not heteronormative.
Based. Krystal. Oh, that's going to get clipped. Krystal didn't fall for the bait. Saagar brought up that bullshit economic point, and she just ignored it and went right back to it. That's actually really good. I really, really expected her to like hold on to that, and the rest of the convo would be on that. Yeah, listen, Saagar takes a critical hit as his disingenuous deflection fails. Look at his face.
And so if you have individual teachers who are a problem and they're doing things that are against the law, then you go after those individual teachers.
Absolutely.
And again, remember, sex ed, however you feel about whether this should be the case or not, sex ed is already banned in Florida. So from K to 5. So this is really just
Which is wild, by the way. Which is absolutely wild.
Just about signaling like I'm against, trans ideology and I'm going to stand, with the conservative base on this, framing it as a parental rights issue when really it's just all about this culture war. It's an anti-gay virtue signal bill. That's what.
So, oh God, Krystal, I'm a simple man. I like my good guys and my bad guys here. Don't do this to me. Don't do good.
It is. It's an attempt to re-stigmatize things that have become increasingly accepted.
It's dramatically popular, Krystal. It's got 63% approval in the state.
Wow, that sure has absolutely fucking nothing to do with what she just said, Saagar. Wow, that sure has nothing to do with what she said.
Of Florida, and I think there's a reason for that. It's dramatically popular, Krystal. It's got 63% approval in the state of Florida, and
I wonder if that has something to do with the fact that their governor is like a mouth-breathing psychopath who is making a massive media push alongside the Republican Party to promote bills like this.
I think there's a reason for that, right? And
low IQ argument. Seriously? Slavery used to be popular. What do you mean? This is nothing. This means nothing. Jesus. Like she's arguing against the validity and the morality of the bill. Like what? It's just like Jesus Christ.
I just think you're doing a disservice to it by saying it's anti-gay because 55% of Republicans support gay marriage.
But do you think?
What? First of all, regardless of what Republicans say they support, they vote in anti-gay marriage politicians. So don't care. Second of all, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about at all, even remotely. There's no relationship. Third of all, 55% is not something to be bragging about, okay? 55%, like just barely over, I think that gays are like lesser. Like, okay, yeah.
Do you think that ultimately there's going to be an issue if you have a straight teacher who's talking about their marriage in class? No,
I don't.
Of course not.
I also don't think, though, that a gay teacher.
But if you have a gay teacher talking about
saying Disney is conservatives wash makes you look kind of funny. Stop! I feel like you guys don't understand the difference between progressives in a company and progressive companies, okay? Disney employs a lot of artists. Artists are generally pretty progressive, okay? For as long as Disney has existed, there have been plenty of people who have worked at Disney, thousands of people, tens of thousands who have worked at Disney who are progressive and who try to push Disney in progressive directions. If you go back and look at older movies in Disney, like maybe the 90s, like animated hits, you'll find stuff in there that would have been considered like, a little smidgen subversive, It's not like, the themes of Mulan weren't subversive in their own way, It's not like there wasn't stuff in like the Beauty and the Beast that people didn't consider subversive. Like the Beauty and the Beast. No, hell, the Notre Dame. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, the main villain is, like, basically an archetype of a real-world political persecution that took place in France. Like, do you think there weren't conservatives reading about that? Like, there are elements in there. But the company of Disney has generally kept it pretty close to the chest when it comes to a lot of issues. They're very Hillary Clinton on their progressivism, Very, I'm okay with it the nanosecond it'll get us 1 extra cent in like merch sales, like the very, 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 very tepid. And of course, that's why when they put progressive stuff in their media, they do so in a way that makes it really easy to cut out when it's released in like China and stuff, They do that deliberately. They'll give us our progressive tidbits, but only in the areas where it won't have, like corporate blowback. Their primary motivation here is money, obviously, but it's something for which they don't really take that many risks, They don't want to incite controversy in the same way that some other companies do. Another company that does, first and foremost, only care about money, okay, is Nike. Obviously, Nike's a huge company. But Nike did a partnership with Kaepernick back during the height of his controversy because even though they care a lot about money, Nike was willing to take advantage of BLM and the controversy surrounding Kaepernick in order to promote their brand. Very effectively, by the way. Worked out in their favor. But that was a kind of political controversy that, while ultimately to their benefit, was still controversial. Disney avoids that controversy. They want to be seen as the eternal, wholesome American values media company. They want their theme park and their movies and their animations and everything else to feel like the wholesome heart of Americana, the beating heart of acceptable media consumption. They don't thrive in inciting controversy and division the way some other companies will when they attempt to make profit off of, divisiveness. Disney doesn't want that. But now Disney is taking, well, I don't want to call it taking a stand. Disney has taken a position which makes them look like they're some kind of, at least to Republicans, like some kind of woke company, when no, it's just that Republicans forced the issue. Republicans were so batshit crazy, so far to the right of where the Overton window you'd think it would be, that relative to them, their politics of milquetoast neutral centrism come across as relatively progressive. So anyway, just there.
Out their same-sex partner, do you think that's much more likely to face a lawsuit ultimately and somebody be accused of like, oh, you're grooming children or whatever ridiculous?
More likely,
because
yes.
they want to push it outside of mainstream and make it like, this is weird and deviant, and this is the norm and the standard.
I think if it happened to a gay person, I would speak out against that, and that's why I think...
No, you're supporting the bill. Wait, you just acknowledged that legal persecution would not happen to a heterosexual teacher acknowledging their relationship, that it would happen to a gay teacher acknowledging their relationship, and that you would oppose that law when it happens. But you're supporting the law. So
I think that the law is, badly drafted and stupid, largely. But look, what I wish we were fighting about is whether the school district gets more funding or not. Like,
you see, he does it again. This is an untenable position. He's like, well, I can't fight you on the progressivism stuff, but I'd just rather talk about economic issues, and then go and vote for all the people who will make all these issues worse. Jesus, dude, this is so perfect. I wish Shu was here. Economic populism being used as a transparent vehicle for pushing conservative social positions while distracting from them with this whole, well, economic issues are more important, of course, but like, will he vote for people who are more economically left-leaning? Yeah, okay. Even if he like voted Bernie Sanders' ticket across the board, like that doesn't justify using it as a whataboutism. Even if he was like a full-on like real leftist or whatever, you can simultaneously fight for economic pro-worker populism and progressivism. You know how you do it? By voting out DeSantis. Like, wow, okay, I'd rather not talk about all this reactionary politics stuff that DeSantis is doing in Florida. Instead, let's talk about the economic issues in Florida, which could probably be solved in part by voting out DeSantis, who's also incredibly economically conservative. It's like, well, it's the same problems are predominantly happening from the same people. Not to say Democrats are great in worker issues, but Republicans are doing a lot better. Or a lot worse, sorry.
Well, I think that's a good way to close it, because ultimately, if you are a parent, a public school parent, as I am, the thing that you probably should be most concerned with is the cuts to public education.
What's the math budget?
Right, exactly. And those things never seem to get very much attention. You'll have people flooding into school board meetings over some vaguely worded law. Part of why we're arguing about it is because it could mean anything. Or nothing, and have no impact or be far reaching. So instead of, they'll flood the school board to talk about that. But the thing that is actually going to be most impactful to your kids' education, the budget funding, suddenly that gets cut and cut and cut, and no one even notices.
You actually showed me this. It made me so sad, which is that there was I think it was here in Virginia, there was a...
Fuck, I know that she has to like let the topic slide because they can't argue forever. But if she had pointed out right there, like, so Republicans... stop wasting time with this fake culture war nonsense. She did say that earlier, like she did clearly point out that it's the Republicans who are doing this culture war nonsense, not like Democrats and Republicans, She did say that earlier, but I think this would have been a really important point to reaffirm, like right here, Like, yeah, I agree, we shouldn't let these distractions pull us away from real economic issues. So I encourage Republicans to stop making culture war talking points out of it,
a CRT meeting where it was completely full, and somebody put it side by side at the school commentary school commentary session for PTA that nobody showed up for, which was the funding of the actual school. So I'm like,
well, it was probably all Republicans' fault that the CRT thing was taking. That was also a fake manufactured conflict.
okay, guys, like, look, I'm not saying these things aren't important, but the other things are as well. And like, if this is all that's going to be rule politics, like your kid could literally have his school slashed by 45%. But as long as, you know, you focus on this, then I just look, priority.
Hey, quick question. Which party tends to mandate the cutting of educational budgets? Is that, can anyone think? It was, Betsy Davis, again, like, not saying Dems are great on this. I'm just saying, like, I wonder if there's, like, a broad study on this, like, where most education cuts come from. Here we go. Wait. How Democrats and GOP in the Congress compare on education funding. Democrats in control of the House have what would be a record-high budget of $76 billion for the U.S. Department of Education, featuring a $4.4 billion increase. Meanwhile, Republicans want to maintain spending at $71.5 billion, with some slight increases for stuff like charter schools and safety measures. Charter schools and safety measures. Okay. I want kind of a broader take rather than just that one. Yeah, I feel like if you looked back through, I don't know if there's like some chart that I can look at, but if you look back through this, I think it's pretty clear that basically every time Dems and Republicans in Congress fight over this, Democrats want more, like, education spending, you know? Like, basically every time.
Priorities, I think they're all mixed up in general. And unfortunately, though, this is the way that politics is going.
Indeed. Cable news is ripping us apart.
Okay. I wish that Krystal had called out, like, who's responsible for this, like the whole, like, Republicans are the ones who are cutting the education budgets and distracting from them type deal. But for the most part, Krystal Ball did a really good job there. Like, a really, really good job there. Like, credit where credit's due. You know, I'm not gonna like hold someone's, like, if I'm used to like bad performance from someone and then all of a sudden they do like really good, I'm not gonna go like, oh yeah, okay, well it could have been perfect. You know, obviously. That was good, actually. Yeah. Saagar's reaction a little bit. I hope I can talk to Saagar someday without a stupid fucking ear condom. Hopefully that comes off soon. Yeah. She just goes along with whatever Saagar's saying, but she did good here. I want to see what the comments look like. Hold on. This was only posted 12 hours ago, so it's still probably, you know, rustling over here. I imagine a lot of this is... So, the Breaking Points audience is, like, overwhelmingly Republican, I think. So let's see. So glad you guys released this. Seeing this makes me love you guys even more. Is it already against the law for schools to encourage or hide medical and mental issue of children from parents? If not, this should be made into law. Medical and mental issues. I like how that's what being gay is being put next to. Yes, of course. No, I don't think there's any legal requirement for teachers to disclose stuff to parents. I think it's really a case-by-case basis kind of thing. Also, mental. Like, if a kid says they're depressed or something, like, do they have to... Like, what if a kid says they're depressed and you get the feeling it's because of their abusive parent? Like, what do you... Like, no. Yeah, I don't think so. One thing Disney won't like, having real cops investigate when something fishy happens instead of their security. Yeah, Disney covers stuff up, I think, with their security, doing internal investigations. Yeah, I don't like Disney, you know. There's a bunch of people jerking them off for, like, disagreeing in a polite way, of course, because civility politics runs the fucking... runs the goddamn IDW somehow. My takeaway, Krystal hasn't read the parental rights bill. Neither of them has read the Reedy Creek bill. The latter allows for creation of new special districts. It's a law. The parental rights bill, they mean the don't say gay bill? I have read it, and she was correct in her assessment. So much of this is just, like, congratulating them for getting along. I understand Krystal's point. However, there are real-world examples in the Florida school districts having policies that expressly forbid parents about conversations school personnel would have with a student about their sexual orientation, gender identity. That's the real crux of the bill, which bans that kind of policy. Wait, Florida of school districts? You mean the Florida school district? Why does it say that? Florida of school districts? having policies that expressly forbid parents about conversations school personnel would have a student about their sexual... Forbids telling parents about conversations school personnel would have with a student about their sexual... I don't even know what this is referring to. I'm sorry. Krystal needs to understand this is happening in larger instances and that people will not tolerate this with children. Citation needed. Saagar's right, you're doing a disservice to this by framing it this way. Well, damn, if only Saagar could have provided an argument instead of, like, worming off every point. Like, Saagar backed off everything in that convo. Like, yeah. I see Krystal's point, but I feel like her premise is making an assumption of people's motives, which is exactly what got us into this mess in the first place. The point of the bill in the Florida Don't Say Gay bill, in the literal summary, says to ban discussion or instruction of gender or sexuality in classrooms. It says it right there. You don't have to assume anything. Everything that she said was to the letter, like, written in with the bill. It wasn't an assumption or anything. You can basically convince a 5 to 6-year-old of virtually anything. That's real share. I love this presumption because it's like there are teachers convincing these young children to be gay or trans, of which there are no examples. Literally, to my knowledge, there have been 0 news stories indicated of some kind of actual gender or sex grooming cult where they're making an effort to convince people to be gay or trans. The only thing that's come out is an acknowledgement that gay or trans people exist has been, like, told to little kids or whatever, which I'm fine with. Also, this is such a self-report. The idea that you can just convince a 5 or 6-year-old to be fucking gay or trans or whatever is just not true and not substantiated. There is plenty of evidence, though, that their conservative parents will force gay or trans kids to stay in the closet, which is an effort to actually try to convince them of anything. Conservatives want to live in a bubble where they're constantly reaffirming the so-called natural biological fact that all people are straight or that all people are cisgender. And yet somehow, in spite of these things being part of a natural order, they also have to expend a ton of social capital and enforce a surveillance state in order to keep people from discovering that they're not. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a self-report. Conservatives keep, like, fucking LGBT kids in the closet all the time. A majority, I think, or at least a huge portion of homeless youth are LGBT kids that have been kicked out by non-supportive parents. And in this environment where there are so many queer kids that are being kept in the closet, they're like, actually, the real problem are all these non-existent examples of teachers forcing people to be gay or trans, of which we have no examples. You know, that's the real issue we need to be passing, like, statewide bills for. That's what Tucker Carlson says is happening on a show every night. Well, we looked at the Libs of TikTok account where the caption of the video posted by Libs of TikTok would be like, here's some school teacher grooming your children to being trans. And the video was just like a teacher being like, yeah, I like to teach my kids that it's okay to identify how you want, smile. And like, bro, if your kid's gonna turn trans because they heard it's okay to turn trans, your kid was trans. I'm sorry to have to inform this of you. There are going to be so many gay and trans kids or like young adults whose parents go on a conservative bender talking about how the only reason their children ended up being gay or trans is because of grooming from schools or whatever. It's like, no, the kid was just gay or trans. You're you're not going to convince a kid to be gay because a teacher said it's okay for a person to be gay. That just doesn't work that way, you know? If it worked that way, there would be no gay or trans people because the affirmation that it's okay to be straight or to be cis is so omnipresent that it would have fucking de-queered all human beings. But it didn't, clearly. So, that was good. That's main channel content. I'm proud of Krystal.